Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice of radio. So today, we're going to be looking at a new supporter card, and to be perfectly blunt, this could be a bit of a problem. I woke up to a 20+ sign in my Twitter notifications this morning. Generally speaking, that means something is going on. And something is going on, ladies and gentlemen. It's the new Lieutenant Surge supporter, Lieutenant Surge's strategy. And when a new set is leaking and I'm starting with a supporter card, you know it's a pretty gosh darn good supporter card. Now, our translation comes from the lovely David Hochmann today. And what this card says is you can only play it if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, i.e. if you're losing the game. You can play 3 supporter cards this turn, including this one. So essentially you play this, and then you play 2 more supporter cards. Kind of like how Brainstorm in Transformers lets you play that, and then 2 action cards. So frankly, this is a ridiculous card, because it essentially lets you play 2 supporters in one turn. Yes, you play Lieutenant Surge, but let's face it, you're only playing that to play the other 2. It lets you double supporter, and frankly, this is going to cause a whole bunch of issues. Now, one we can get rid of straight away. In terms of the wording, this has been worded, you can play 3 supporter cards this turn, including this one. It seems kind of awkward, but this is necessary to get rid of Magnezone shenanigans. Magnezone says during your turn you may play 2 supporter cards. If Lieutenant Surge said 2 extra supporter cards, then you'd run into all kinds of issues with playing 2 of them and playing 4 supporters. I believe that if it is worded like this, and again, as with all of these, we will need an official ruling before we can be 100% certain, but Magnezone says you can play 2 supporter cards, Lieutenant Surge's strategy says you can play 3, including this one, so Magnezone won't let you play 2 Surge. In the same way that 2 Magnezone won't let you play 3 supporters. So, this is quite ridiculous, and first of all, yeah, you've got to be behind on prizes, so it's another one of these cards, like Counter Catcher and Counter Energy, which do give you an advantage for being behind on prizes. So you'll see a whole bunch of decks, whether it's setup decks that don't mind having a basic or 2 knocked out, or spread decks like Tapu Koko decks that spread for a couple turns, letting their opponent get a KO. There are going to be plenty of decks that can use this nicely. But really, and it's not the only use for this, but the best use for this is stalling decks. Stalling decks, the classic example is the old Wailord. The new example will probably end up being Magikarp and Wailord. Decks that essentially go, I'm not playing any energy, I'm not taking any prizes, so you just go ahead and do your thing. I don't think you're going to be able to one-hit KO me, and I'm going to sit here using cards like Crushing Hammer to slow you down. Except a lot of the cards they use to slow you down are going to be supporter cards. Cards like Ace Roller to pick up a Pokemon. Cards like Plumeria to discard a little bit of energy. Or Faber to Lost Zone special energy, tool cards or stadiums. And now you can play 2 of them in a single turn, which could potentially be an issue. Going to the expanded format, you've got Team Flare Grunt, which just gets rid of an energy attached to the active, and of course in expanded you've also got Versus Seeker, which is a little bit of an issue, because you can play it, get it back with Versus Seeker, then immediately play it again. And yes, you can use Versus Seeker to get Lieutenant Surge's strategy back, and yeah, that's a little bit of an issue. Speaking of issues, you know how a couple days ago I said Loosamine was a problem because it really needed an errata? And a whole bunch of people came out and said, oh, it isn't broken, you can only use it kind of every other turn, it's not that much of a loop. It is. There are plenty of decks in which Loosamine is a problem now, and it's only going to get worse, but Lieutenant Surge comes in. Now again, we need an official ruling, but Lieutenant Surge's wording should stop you looping this. So it doesn't say you can play 2 extra, it says you can play 3 supporter cards this turn. So if you play a Lieutenant Surge and use it to play 2 Lieutenant Surge, great, there's your 3 supporter cards, move on with your life. Again, we need an official ruling, but the wording seems to preclude that. And I have checked with David and he agrees, so this looks pretty standard. It seems like you're not going to be able to stack with itself or Magnezone, which is a thing. But back to Loosamine then. My argument with Loosamine in my video recently, and I'll pop a link in the description, is that Loosamine needs an errata. Loosamine should read, put 2 in any combination of supporter and stadium cards from your discard pile into your hand. You cannot choose Loosamine with the effect of this card. Because see, now, you can play Lieutenant Surge, get a Loosamine. And then you play a Loosamine to get back whatever card you want, say an Ace Roller or a Team Flare Grunt, and then immediately use one of the ones you got back with Loosamine. Now, thanks to Lieutenant Surge, you can play Loosamine every turn, and immediately use one of the cards you got back. Now it's a much bigger issue. And the irony is, I've seen so many people this morning already going, yeah, Loosamine's a problem, we need to get rid of Loosamine. And I'm like, people have been saying this for weeks. Now don't get me wrong, Lieutenant Surge makes Loosamine a much bigger problem, but the problem wasn't necessarily the combos we had now, the problem in Loosamine was the wording. Because imagine you're playing against something like a Magikarp and a Wailord Tag Team GX. Every turn, Lieutenant Surge for a Loosamine and an Ace Roller. And then play the Ace Roller. And then Lieutenant Surge, Loosamine, get an Ace Roller back. And then, of course, you're going to run out of Lieutenant Surge eventually. But just make sure that when you run out of Lieutenant Surge, you've made sure you've used that and Loosamine well enough that you've got 4 Ace Roller left in your deck. And your opponent just isn't going to be able to KO it. I said the other day that as it stands at the moment, if you can't 2-hit KO Magikarp and Wailord, because of Loosamine and Ace Roller, you basically can't ever KO it. Well, now if you can't 1-hit KO it, you're not KOing it. And it's got 300 HP, ladies and gentlemen. You're probably not 1-hit KOing it. Now, it does have a weakness to grass, so if you're playing something like Golisopod and you're playing Choice Band, yeah, now you can. But if you're not, that could potentially be an issue. And what if you end up in Expanded and you play cards like Team Rocket's Handiwork? Team Rocket's Handiwork is a great little supporter, whereby you flip 2 coins and for each heads you discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. But now imagine you're playing 2 of those every single turn. And when you run out, you just play a Loosamine to get 2 of them back, and then play one of them. It really is going to lead us to redonkulous combos. And it's these mill decks, stall decks, wall decks, call them what you will. They are the ones that are going to be the primary issues when it comes to Lieutenant Surge's strategy. That's not to say it's the only one, but it is to say it is the one that's going to be the biggest issue right now. This is going to be why we hate this card in the short term. But it's not the only reason to not like it. It allows you to do stuff like play a Cynthia to get yourself a nice new hand of cards, and then play a Judge to disrupt your opponent before they've even gotten rolling. It allows you to play an Ace Roller to heal your Pokemon, and play a Guzma to drag a Pokemon off the bench and KO it. One of the reasons that people play Pokemon Catcher, even though it's on a coin flip, is that sometimes you need to play something like a Cynthia to draw the Pokemon Catcher so that you can then play it and try and win the game. Well, thanks to Lieutenant Surge, you play Surge, then you play Cynthia to dig for it, then you draw it and play the Guzma. This is a phenomenal card. In decks that are built to play from behind, that play stuff like Counter Energy and Counter Catcher, this is an instant 3 or 4 of because it's so bustedly good. In stall decks, it's an instant 4 of and people are going to hate it. But even in regular decks, are you not going to put 1 or 2 of them in there? We're playing cards like Tapu Lele and Makago at the moment that allow us to grab these supporter cards more easily than we've been able to for a long time. So it's not exactly going to be difficult to get out the deck, and there are just going to be turns when you're like, oh, I need that double colorless energy. I missed it playing a Cynthia. Oh, well, I'll play a couple cards and then I'll play a Lily and I'm sure I'll draw it now. This is a nuts, over-the-top, crazy good 5 Wassy card, and it's not even an issue. This is so easily a 5 Wassy card. Yeah, you've got to be behind on prizes to play it, and that is a bit of an issue, but this seems kind of like a Prism Star card, but we might have reached the end of the Prism Star era, so they couldn't make it a Prism Star, so they were like, you're going to be behind on prizes. And I'm just going to come out and say, I do not think that's enough of a downside to stop this seeing a huge amount of play. Mill decks are going to be done with this, but this isn't just for mill decks. This is going to see a lot of play in a lot of decks. Alrighty then, so that's what it does and the importance of the fact that it doesn't combo with itself or Magnezone. But what do you think about this? Is this as broken and as silly as I'm making out, or am I overreacting? What 2 supporter cards do you want to play in one turn after using this? Go nuts in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen. But please do remember the most important rule as always. Be nice, would ya? Then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays for some more Wassy action. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.